Hey, what's up guys, it's Apollo Uchiha here, back with the next part of What If Naruto Was Reunited with His Family. And before continuing this, if you haven't, then please do leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content of this channel. And without further ado, let's continue with our story. Yeah guys, I kind of forgot to tell you about the background noise. Sorry about that in advance, because from now on you're going to hear it till the summer is over. It's just the fan. I hope you don't mind. My air conditioner is broken, so yeah, it's kinda need time to be repaired. Sorry about that, and without further ado, let's continue with our story. Stepping into the forest, Naruto wandered down the stairs smiling energetically. He had the day off since he'd completed the first exam on day 1 and he was intent on taking advantage of it. Training, thought the young Namikaze over and over again. His mother had promised to show him 2 new Kenjutsu techniques once he passed the exam, and now he could finally add more variety to his swordplay. He knew today would be a day and a good day at all. The only potential downside being his father giving him another talking to. Apparently Yugao had talked to Minato about some mistakes Naruto made. The most glaring were his intentions to test himself and how he talked about what his techniques could do. His dad had lectured the blonde for an hour at least. Later that day, it hadn't been fun, and considering he'd been hoping to find Hinata and pay her around that time only made it worse. Once the lecture was over, it was time to start training with his dad, and he never made it out of the house. By the time training was over, he was too tired to move after all. Morning, Naruto. Naruto was pulled from his thoughts by his father's voice. Looking around, he realized he'd made it to the kitchen without even noticing. If he kept walking he would be probably ending up into the door. Morning, Dad, he replied, beaming. Looking at the table, he saw plates set out, and he could hear his mother in the kitchen. Licking his lips, he resolved that training could wait. Taking a seat at the table, he waited for his mom to bring breakfast. Link break. Kushina watched as Minato and Naruto sat underneath a tree together meditating. She'd been overseeing their training when it came to the QB. Right now, the two were trying to contact the biju. Minato made it clear that when he put the seal on Naruto, he hoped that one day he and the fox could become friends. The on them thought there would be a day when man and biju would need to work together. Naruto thought this idea could be cool and work out at first, but then his father had explained that the circumstances surrounding such a moment would probably be not the best. Making sure his son understood, he explained how imperative it was to react and reach the QB and try to make friends. If they did not, Minato was sure there would be some grave consequences. The on them was sure that Masked Man would come back for the QB at some point, and there was a possibility that Naruto would need the Biju's help to win the battle, if it occurred. If he had to fight against the Masked Man again and the QB influence at once, Minato wasn't sure he would be victorious. He knew the QB wouldn't accept his son right now, but Minato didn't want to waste any time. There was no telling when the Masked Man would come for the QB again after all. As Kushina continued to watch her boys, she was thankful that she knew the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. There were so many genin participating in the exam that there was no way they could truly have 1:1 between test givers and test takers. That said, Kushina had to make a few Kage Bunshin yesterday, and even then, they still had to test 3 to 4 tunings, hopefully each. Unfortunately, some hadn't shown up, so she still had to be out and about in the village today, and that is why she loved her Kage Bunshin. She had been in a terrible mood if she missed out on their family's breakfast, chit-chat, and even more pissed off she hadn't been able to show Naruto a few more Uzumaki Kenjutsu techniques after breakfast. Training was something their family seemed to thoroughly enjoy, and as odd as it was, they bonded quite a bit through doing it. As Kage Bunshin was becoming one of Kushina's favorite jutsu, as she looked out at her son and her husband, she knew she wouldn't trade a day like this for the whole world. Link break. Naruto yawned as he made his way to the training ground 44. After training with his parents yesterday, the rest of the day had gone by in a blur. Aside from search for Hinata and failed to find her, he ran into Sakura on her way out of the library. He wanted to ask if she passed the exam, but she'd been in a hurry, only telling him that she had to go meet her new sensei for some training. Naruto had been fairly confused, to say the least. The rest of the day was spent in meditation. After hours of it, which could have been shorter had he not kept getting distracted, he managed to actually dive into his mindscape. The QB had been waiting for him, knowing that Naruto was attempting to speak with him ever hopefully, Naruto tried befriending the frogs. His dad had said it would be important since some weird mask guy would be coming for him and QB. The QB had intentionally laughed in his face before his attitude took a 180 degree. He fixed Naruto with the most menacing glare the boy had ever seen, as killer intent that leaks out of it, and the likes of which Naruto hoped to never feel directed at him again, flooded the sphere that was his mind. Following that, the QB growled, telling Naruto he was a fool and that he would be free someday, before roaring and essentially kicking Naruto out of his mindscape. All things considered, Naruto thought he was out and off to a great start. After such a day, one might expect the young Jinchuriki to be tired, but in fact he hadn't been able to sleep much last night. He's been so excited for today that he just couldn't stay asleep for long. Thankfully, he always seemed to have an endless amount of energy, so aside from being a bit sluggish, which he knew would not last, he was tired at all. Picking up his speed, Naruto quickly arrived at the outskirts of the gate forest. Looking at it, he noted that it gave off quite the ominous aura. Assuring and assuming that this was where he'd be going for the second exam, Naruto hummed, knowing that this would be a quiet, interesting day. "Looks like you passed, Tobe." Turning around, he met eyes with Sasuke. The young Uchiha was casually strolling up to his blonde teammate, hands in his pocket as usual. "Yeah, I did, fine, Teme. No thanks to you." Sasuke scoffed at the reply. "And if you fail, you got me disqualified." "We're on the same team, Sasuke, whether you help me out or not. If I failed, you have failed regardless," replied Naruto. "Were you not paying attention when the part was explained?" he added teasingly. The Uchiha bristled at this, but before he could retort, their third teammate called out to them. "Hi Naruto." "Hi Sasuke-kun," greeted Sakura, giving Sasuke a cutesy look as she called his name. Sasuke heaved an inaudible sigh, looking away from the fangirl in the process, as Sakura, visibly dejected and deflated at his lack of care for her. Naruto watched the scene play out and wondered what it would be like to take Sasuke's place for once. "Hey Sakura, glad to see you're passed. You worried me yesterday," said Naruto, resting his arms behind his head with a smile. Sakura nodded, offering a smile in return, though hers was somewhat strained. "Yeah, sorry about that. I got someone to teach me medical ninjutsu and they were pretty strict. If I'd stopped to chat with you, I would have been late and that would have ended well," replied Sakura. She sighed, thinking about her meeting with Oyano yesterday. Link break. Sakura walked into the hospital a minute to 6. She'd been sitting on a bench outside of the past 5 minutes, waiting for the time to draw just a little close to 6. She would have walked in earlier, but she figured Oyama would be busy and wouldn't want her around just yet. Thankfully for Sakura, her sensei like Kakashi, waiting a measly 5 minutes was nothing. "Looks like you're on time," said Oyane as Sakura neared the front desk. "Next time, just walk in early. I could see you from here." Blushing slightly, Sakura nodded. "At the very least, I'm glad you got the drive to become a chunin. That's not going to be enough though. You want to become a medic ninja? Well then, I personally don't want you in the second exam. If you don't know how to heal someone, you got till midnight to learn how to heal basic wounds. If you can't, then I won't be passing you. I'll be at the front desk by then, since that will be all. And when another one of my shifts here ends, get going." At a loss of words, Sakura merely nodded and made her way out of the hospital. She spent the rest of the day until 3 in the afternoon at the river practicing medical jutsus on a fish while reading over books on the start and art to make sure she was doing it right. Her progress had been very slow going in her opinion, and she worried that she may not figure it out in time. When she watched that her watch has hit 3, Sakura resolved to go and meet Oyane in hopes of getting her help. She doubted that cranky woman would do anything aside from failing her, but she figured she would fail regardless unless she got some help. When she made it to the hospital, Sakura was told Oyane next desk shift would begin at 4, so the pink cat waited near the front desk reading a book on the medical ninjutsu until she arrived. "You back early, giving up?" Sakura tore her eyes away from the book and looked up. Meeting eyes with the stern gaze of Oyane, she shook her head. Before the ever-grumpy medic nin could speak up, Sakura told her of her progress and asked the woman if she could help. "You're asking your proctor to help you pass a test?" asked Oyane, trying to confirm if she heard the right thing. Sakura nodded nervously. "Show me what you can do," Oyane replied as she turned and beckoned Sakura to follow. Closing her book as she got up to her feet, Sakura did just that. The two soon found themselves in a vacant room down the hall from entrance. Oyane hoped no one came to the front desk as she told Sakura to do her thing. Complying with Oyane's request, Sakura set to the work on a fish that was already in the room. She assumed this must be where budding medics came to practice, as there were fishes tanks within the room. After a few minutes and moments, scratches on the fishes were healed, and the main problem, which was a rip in its fin, did not repair itself. To be honest, I didn't expect you to get this far, said Oyane as Sakura frowned. When the pinkhead was about to retort, she continued, most people can't do what you've done by themselves, and certainly not after a few hours. You must have a kank for medical ninjutsu. I expected you to come asking me for help a lot sooner, maybe even right after I given you the task. You still got a way to go, but you will be a good medic one day. So, how about this? You passed this exam. Sakura's eyes lit up, but before she could say anything, Oyane cut her off. I like your resolve, Sakura. Not many of the other Chunins hopeful I've tested have had the same drive as you, and none of them wanted to be medics either, so I'm going to give you an offer. Like I said, you got a kank for medical ninjutsu, but you could definitely be better. How about I teach you? Sakura wasted no time in replying, yes, thank you. I love it if you would teach me more about medical ninjutsu. Oyane nodded before leading the girl back to the front desk. I've got to work until 6. Meet me back here, then we'll get started. I'll be here, Oyane-sensei, beamed Sakura. Link break. After passing her test, Sakura had gone to the library where she'd spent her time reading more about medical ninjutsu. Before she made it back to the hospital, bumping into Naruto along the way, the pinkhead had to admit yesterday had been quite eventful for her, and she honestly couldn't change it for the world. So what do you guys think this is the next exam will be? She asked. Her teammates shrugged, neither having any real idea aside from assuming it would be physical. With that as a basis, they jumped into the conversation about the exams, not even noticing as more and more teams arrived. They have continued to chat and plan, but were put on alert when a smoke bomb went off around the teams. When the smoke cleared, they saw a banner hanging from the tree that read, "Welcome to the second exam." Below the banner stood a purple-haired woman in fairly revealing clothes. Aside from a trench coat that covered her arms and her backside, there was little left to the imagination. Hey there, brats. I'm Mitarashi Anko, your proctor for the part of the Chunin exam. It looks like 20 teams made it though. No worries, I'll make sure this exam cut that in half at least, said Anko grinningly. Some Genins had to suppress a shiver. Kiba snorted, yelling that nothing she could dish out would stop his team from winning. Shortly after that was his ignorance and arrogance was scared out of him when a kunai flew past his cheek, cutting into it and drawing blood. As if that wasn't enough, Anko had appeared behind him, nicking blood off his cheek. She replied, "Brats like you die in the fastest." Kiba gulped and Akamaru retreated into his partner's hood, smirking at a job well done, scaring the Genin. Anko prepared to make her way back to the front of the group until she caught a very long tongue in her peripheral vision. Immediately on guard, Anko whipped around to see a Kusako Noichi behind her, a kunai being held by her hand and tongue. Your kunai, Mitarashi-san. Narrowing her eyes, Anko reached out and took her kunai. Thanks. Some Genin snuck up on me. I don't believe that. I better keep an eye on this one, thought Anko as she reclaimed her spot in front of the Genin. Wiping the frown on her face, she spoke again. I'm not one for long explanations, so here's how it's going to be. Each team is going to get a scroll for heaven or a scroll for earth. Then you brats are going to be sent into the forest. Inside the forest is a tower. That's where you need to go. Find it. You got 5 days to make it there, but you need both scrolls with you when you get there to pass. In other words, steal them from other team. If you open your scrolls before you're in the tower, your team is disqualified. 5 days, yelled Choji. What about food? A red-haired Kumoko Noichi glanced in her way, her brow arching. She wondered if he was being serious, because to answer to this question should be obvious. Nodding to herself, she looked away, thinking the Konoha ninja were ridiculous. There's plenty in the forest to eat, grinned Anko. Just make sure it doesn't eat you first. On that note, she trailed off as she reached into her trench coat and retrieved some paper. I'm going to need you brats to sign this. Why? Asked Ataki Konoichi. She had tan skin, green hair, and orange eyes. Because you guys are going to be fighting over these scrolls, and these exams have no rules basically. We need to make sure your villages don't come trying to start a war with us when one of these teams dies in the forest. No one said anything after that. The mood was setting in now. They could really die in this exam. Link break. Team 7 had just turned in their waivers and had collected their scrolls. They got an Earth scroll and now they were waiting for the exam to start. They were trying to figure out what to do with it. Give me the scroll, said Naruto. Sasuke and Sakura gave him a look that clearly wondered if he was serious. Why would we do that, Naruto? Asked Sasuke, scolding. You screw up a lot, giving us one good reason why we should let you hold on to this, asked Naruto, waving the scroll in front of the blonde, his voice dripping with bastard. Because I'm better at Funjutsu than you'll ever be, and I can easily seal the scroll where no one can get it, retorted Naruto, a challenging smile on his lip. You, Fuinjutsu? Sasuke mocked, scoffing. Kakashi Sensei told us how good your clan was with it, but I've seen Fuinjutsu. Even I've tried to study it myself, though my interest in it was brief. I can't believe that you got something so complicated down, though. Frowning, Naruto snatched the scroll from Sasuke faster than the Uchiha was prepared for, pulling up the orange sleeve on his right arm. Naruto pressed his left hand on the shoulder, and after a moment, Fuinscript appeared. Naruto remembered how he had to sit and write out all his Fuinjutsu up until the last 2 weeks of his training. He didn't mind it, as he was able to do it rather quickly by then. But when his parents had taught him how to apply Fuinjutsu script without needing anything but his hands and his chakra, he became ecstatic. It was hard to learn, and he spent a majority of his Kage Bunshin's time working on it, but eventually he got it down. The young Jinchuriki could easily imagine so many possibilities with being able to quickly apply Fuinjutsu like that. Touching the scroll to the flesh script on his shoulder, Naruto sealed the scroll away from covering the seal up with his sleeve again. I'm an Uzumaki, Teme. The sealing arts are basically in my blood. Grinning Naruto triumphantly, his teammates didn't know how lethal that statement was. Sasuke gave a small smirk, no, even more interested in how much his blonde rival had grown. Sakura merely looked on, slightly amazed with Naruto's skill in sealing. She read up on it after Kakashi had talked about Naruto's Uzumaki clan, and she knew that being able to create Fuinjutsu without nothing but your hands and chakra was quite the advanced technique. Certainly no beginner could do that. So you guys heard about my clan? Asked Naruto. Sakura nodded and Sasuke merely grunted before speaking up. I actually been meaning to ask you about that. And maybe talk to the 2 clan members who have been teaching you too. Why? Asked Naruto, hoping Sasuke wasn't going to try and get training from them. Know that he would really learn much anyway. On that end, Naruto was also wondered what he meant by 2 clan members. Aside from himself, there was only one living Uzumaki clan member he knew of, and that was his mother. Briefly, Naruto wondered what exactly Kashi has told him. It's personal, replied Sasuke, glancing at Sakura briefly. I'll tell you later. Though confused, the blonde nodded. No, that's that. Out of the way, said Sakura. What our plan inside the forest? I say we use the first day of recon, offered Sasuke. Usually he preferred to just rush into a fight while keeping his wits about him, but Kakashi made him realize he needed to think a bit more tactically and tactfully if he wanted to be a Chunin. As Sasuke rubbed his arm off the mere thought of the memory, he wondered why his Cyclops of a sensei couldn't have made the lesson less painful. It sounds fine with me, replied Naruto. I can send out some Hanjid Kage Bunshins. Will the 3 of us find a place to set up a base of sorts? His teammates would have given him an odd look as the sound of strategy, but they were starting to get used to him being a little smarter. As soon and as long as he didn't do anything too surprising, which he was bound to do eventually, this was Naruto we're talking about after all, they wouldn't be caught off guard with him knowing more than before. I can set up a genjutsu around our little camp, said Sakura, contributing to their plans. I learned a pretty good one from Kurenai Sensei that should work very well for misguiding any would-be attackers. I can also weave a genjutsu while we're watching for a camp and searching for it. The way it's less likely will be followed. As long as there's not a Yuga, that should work. The genjutsu I learned was a mid-level. No normal genin should be able to detect it. Sasuke gave his usual and Naruto smiled about the reply when Anko spoke up once again. Okay, brats, it's the moment of truth. The second exam starts now. The gates opened and genin began to make their way into the forest from all sorts of directions and locations. Team 7 did the same. While putting their plans into action, Sakura activated her genjutsu while Naruto created a horde of Kage Bunshins transformed to look like animals as they ran into the forest, taking the trees. Link break. As we go inside the forest, this should do, said Sasuke as he pulled his kunai from the neck of a rather large tiger. It made a wet, squelching noise as it left the beast's flesh. Flicking the blood off his weapon, he dropped it back into its pouch as he watched Naruto make another batch of Hanjid Kage Bunshins while Sakura weaved the genjutsu that would make finding the 3 of them all the more difficult. Not the best place to be living for a few days if it even takes us that long to find a heaven scroll, but it's alright, Tebayo. Naruto replied as his clone fanned out. Currently, the 3 of them were in front of a cave. It had been where the tiger was living. When the Team 7 had stumbled across the place, the beast made the mistake of attacking instead of fleeing, and it had paid for such targetness with its life. But now, Sakura, having finished with her genjutsu, we should do some recon, of course. Sasuke responded, "Don't worry about that." Naruto interrupted as they walk into the cave, lighting up the dark spaces thanks to the small katon jutsu that Sasuke knew. "My clones will handle that. They won't have any trouble finding a scroll, or the tower will know as soon as they do." "Then what are we supposed to do in the meantime?" "I don't like sitting around," Sasuke retorts. The young Avenger certainly wasn't as hyperactive as Naruto, but aside from when he was in class during the academy or waiting on Kakashi to arrive, he never just sat around. He always was training. And if he wasn't, he was reading up on new training methods and techniques, eating or sleeping. There was other little moments like when he's making sure he's well groomed for the day. But he didn't really consider moments such as those. "Maybe we should talk," Sakura suggested, earning her a look from the Uchiha. He wasn't about to share anything from his personal life with Abinkit, realizing that she should probably clarify. She continued, "I don't mean anything casual. We're not functioned as an actual team for the past 2 months, and we all learn new things and techniques. Don't you think we should have an understanding of what each of us can do? It will help us when we coordinate attacks." Sasuke gave his usual now that he understood what she was suggesting. He didn't have any objections. Naruto, at the look, he saw that the blonde also found the suggestion to be a good one. With that, the two gave their agreements and Team 7 started a conversation about their techniques. Link break. As Team 7 discussed each their abilities, Team 8 flew through the trees. Unlike Team 7, they opted to quickly find a scroll and head towards the tower. They had been better recon skills than Team 7. With that said, they could easily do it on the move. With Shino's Kaichu all around the forest, they would have the location of the tower in no time. Hinata had picked out a team with the Earth Scroll before eventually entering the forest using her Byakugan, and Kiba had caught their scent after she pointed them out. The team they'd select was a group of Aminin. They seemed to be relatively strong, but Team 8 knew they were better. Having entered the forest from a better area than the Ame team, they had some ground to cover before they reached them. Despite that, they were making good time, and Hinata was positive that they'd make contact with them within the next hour or so. As they leapt through the trees, Hinata's mind drifted to Naruto. She knew it wasn't smart to get distracted while in a situation such as this, but sometimes she just couldn't help it when it came to her blonde crush. Hinata had heard that Naruto had been looking for her yesterday. Apparently, he ran into Shino while searching for her and asked the Aburame where she was. Shino didn't know and told him as such, prompting the boy to give his thanks regardless of the answer before offering a quick goodbye and leaving to continue his search. Hinata didn't want to get her hopes up too much, but she had a hunch as to why he may be looking for her. He promised her that they'd eat cinnamon buns together, and while she hadn't fully expected him to remember the promise, so far it seemed like he did. She knew Naruto never went back on his word. It was his Nindo after all. With that in mind, she was sure that he would take her out for these cinnamon buns. She just hadn't expected him to be trying so soon. Despite what one may think, the Yuga heiress was even happy he hadn't found her. She still wanted to eat with him, of course, but if it happened so soon, she wouldn't have been no time to prepare. Aside from preparing herself mentally, she also wanted to prepare herself physically. She intended to take the words of her riddle to heart. So when the time came for him to tear her, Hinata wanted to make an impression on the boy. She thought that she could do something that would make her feelings known, but she hoped she could at least make him see her as someone worthy of having a relationship with. The heiress was no fool. Hinata knew that there was a huge amount requirement of mental strength on her part as well as a bit of makeover. She didn't think anything was wrong with what she usually wore. No, not at all. Hinata was positive that she could even make an impression while in her usual attire too, provided she try her hardest. Enough, of course. The thing is, she just wanted a little extra, a great effect, so to speak. She made up her mind to be a bit bolder and decided to leave her comfort zone. Wearing something a bit different was the first step she chose. Kiba, Hinata, called Shino, rousing the timid Yuga from her thoughts. My Kakaichu has returned and they have located the tower. Following our retrieval of the scroll, we shall not waste any time before going there. With the location of the tower now known, the three of them picked up their pace. They didn't want their targets getting taken down before they got to them. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I don't know why, but my head started to hurt a lot. So yeah, I hope you don't mind, and this is Apollo Uchiha and I'm signing out. Peace.